A new home among the stars. Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the Starweaver, her small exploration vessel drifting through the shimmering nebula clouds of the Omega Sector. After 15 years of deep space exploration, she had grown accustomed to the endless silence, broken only by the gentle hum of the ship's systems and occasional beeps from the navigation console. A flash of light caught her attention. The ship's sensors were detecting an anomaly, something that shouldn't exist in this remote corner of space. As she adjusted course to investigate, her heart quickened with anticipation. This far from regulated space, discoveries could mean anything from valuable resources to deadly threats. Computer, analysis of the anomaly? Sarah asked, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Unknown energy signature detected. Configuration suggests artificial construction. Warning, structural integrity of 47%. Sarah maneuvered the Starweaver closer, and there it was, a derelict space station, its silver hull dulled by centuries of cosmic dust. The station's design was unlike anything in her database, with graceful spiraling arms extending from a central hub that pulsed with a faint purple glow. Atmospheric analysis, she queried, already reaching for her exploration suit. Internal atmosphere present, composition within human tolerance, caution advised due to unknown contaminants. Sarah had explored dozens of abandoned stations before, but something about this one felt different. The architecture was too organic, too fluid, definitely not human in origin. After docking at a partially functioning airlock, she stepped into the station's dim corridors, her suit's lights illuminating walls covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the beam. The station's gravity systems still functioned, though weakly. Sarah moved carefully through the abandoned halls, her handheld scanner picking up faint power signatures deeper within the structure. The air was stale but breathable, carrying a slight scent of ozone. In what appeared to be a control room, Sarah found the first signs of the station's original purpose. Holographic displays flickered weakly to life as she approached, showing diagrams of DNA structures and what looked like medical data. This had been some kind of research facility. But it was in the adjacent chamber that she made the discovery that would change her life forever. A single stasis pod hummed quietly, its systems still functioning after what must have been centuries. Through its frosted crystal surface, Sarah could make out a small figure, a child no more than 6 or 7 years old. But this was no human child. The girl's skin was a pale lavender, and delicate patterns of bioluminescent markings traced across her face like stellar constellations. Sarah's scanner confirmed the child was alive, in perfect suspended animation, but the pod's power systems were failing. Within days, maybe hours, they would shut down completely. Computer, analyze the stasis pod's occupant, Sarah commanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Subject appears to be juvenile female of unknown species. Biological systems stable but requiring immediate medical attention upon revival. Genetic structure indicates significant modifications beyond standard evolutionary parameters. Sarah stood there, frozen in indecision. The right thing to do would be to report this to the Galactic Science Council. They would send a research team, quarantine the station, study everything in detail. The child would become a specimen, an object of endless tests and examinations. Looking at the girl's peaceful face, Sarah remembered her own childhood in the crowded orbital habitats of Earth, dreaming of the stars. She thought of all the years she'd spent out here, searching for something she couldn't quite name. Computer, begin stasis pod disconnect sequence, Sarah said firmly. Prepare medical bay for immediate occupant transfer. As she worked to carefully disconnect the pod's systems, Sarah knew she was crossing a line. She was violating at least a dozen regulations about first contact protocols and handling of alien artifacts. But looking at the child's face, she couldn't bring herself to care. "I don't know who you are, little one," she whispered, "or where you came from, but I promise you won't be alone anymore." The pod's systems chirped a warning, power levels critical. Sarah worked faster, her experienced hands making the final connections to prepare for transport. As she initiated the transfer sequence, the station's remaining systems began to fail around her, as if they had been holding on just long enough to ensure their precious cargo would be saved. Sarah raced back to the Star Weaver with the pod, her mind already planning the next steps. She would need to find a remote place to safely revive the child, somewhere away from prying eyes. She would need medical supplies, children's clothes, food suitable for an unknown species. As the Star Weaver pulled away from the dying station, Sarah watched it fade into the nebula's shifting colors. She had no way of knowing if she'd made the right choice, but looking at the sleeping child in the pod, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. "Computer, set course for the Helix Nebula," she commanded, "and begin compiling all available data on xenobiology and child development. We're going to need it." The ship's engines hummed to life, carrying them deeper into unexplored space. In the medical bay, the stasis pod's lights pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. Sarah Chen, lone explorer and now unexpected guardian, smiled. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them. Sometimes family wasn't what you were born into, it was what you found among the stars. First steps in a new world. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah Chen had rescued the mysterious alien child from the derelict station. Hidden in the swirling gases of the Helix Nebula, the Star Weaver drifted among the cosmic clouds, while its newest passenger took her first steps into a new life. The revival process had been tense. Sarah had spent hours studying the pod's systems, cross-referencing them with every xenobiology database she could access. When the pod finally opened with a soft hiss, the child's first breath had been shaky and uncertain. Those violet eyes had opened slowly, filled with confusion and fear. Sarah remembered that moment clearly, how she'd have forced herself to remain still, hands open and visible, trying to project calm and safety through her body language. "Hello," she had said softly. "You're safe now. My name is Sarah." The girl had simply stared at first, her luminescent markings pulsing gently with her rapid heartbeat. Then, unexpectedly, she had reached out and touched Sarah's face with trembling fingers, as if checking if she was real. Now, watching the child, whom she had named Nova, explore the ship's hydroponics bay, Sarah marveled at how quickly she was adapting. Nova moved with increasing confidence through the rows of growing plants, her natural bioluminescence brightening with curiosity. "This one?" Nova asked, pointing to a tomato plant. Her grasp of English was remarkable, though her voice carried an ethereal, musical quality that marked it as distinctly alien. "That's right," Sarah smiled. "Would you like to help me harvest some for dinner?" Nova nodded eagerly. She had taken to earth vegetables with enthusiasm, though Sarah had to carefully test each new food for compatibility with her unique physiology. The ship's medical systems had been working overtime, analyzing Nova's biology, creating a comprehensive dietary and health plan. As they worked together, Sarah noticed Nova's markings shift into a pattern she hadn't seen before. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Nova paused, clutching a tomato. "I had a dream last night. Before." Sarah's hands stilled. This was the first time Nova had mentioned anything about her past. "Would you like to tell me about it?" "There were others like me," Nova said slowly, her brow furrowed in concentration, "in a place with tall crystal towers that sang in the wind. But then there was fire and screaming, and," she shuddered, her markings dimming to a dull glow. Sarah moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "You're safe now, Nova. Nothing can hurt you here." Nova looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Why did you save me?" The question caught Sarah off guard. She knelt down to Nova's level, choosing her words carefully. "Because every life is precious, and no one deserves to be left alone in the dark. When I found you, I couldn't just walk away." Nova considered this, her head tilted in that peculiar way that reminded Sarah she was dealing with a mind potentially very different from her own. "The others who look like you, humans, would they all do the same?" Sarah sighed. "No, honey. Some would have been afraid of something they didn't understand. Others might have wanted to study you like a specimen. That's why we need to be careful, at least for now. Is that why we hide in the colored clouds? Yes, until we better understand where you came from and why you were in that station, it's safer if few people know about you. Nova nodded, her markings shifting to a pattern Sarah had come to associate with deep thought. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and hugged Sarah tightly. I'm glad you found me. Sarah felt her throat tighten as she returned the embrace. Me too, kiddo, me too. Later that night, after Nova had gone to sleep in her newly decorated cabin, Sarah sat in the cockpit reviewing the ship's logs. She had been documenting Nova's progress, recording every detail about her abilities and development. The child was extraordinary. Her capacity for learning was unlike anything Sarah had encountered in her years of xenological studies. But with each passing day, Sarah grew more concerned about their future. They couldn't hide in the nebula forever. Nova needed more than just survival. She needed a chance to grow, to learn, to have something resembling a normal childhood, whatever that meant for her species. The ship's sensors chirped, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. A commercial transport was passing through the outer edges of the nebula. Though they were well hidden, the alert reminded her of their precarious situation. One scan at the wrong moment, one curious pilot with good sensors, and their sanctuary could be compromised. Sarah pulled up the star charts, studying possible destinations. They needed somewhere remote enough to ensure privacy, but developed enough to access supplies and information. Perhaps one of the independent colonies in the rim sectors. A soft sound made her turn. Nova stood in the cockpit doorway, her markings glowing softly in the dim light. Couldn't sleep? Sarah asked gently. Nova shook her head. The stars were calling. She moved to stand beside Sarah's chair, staring out at the nebula's shifting colors. Her small hand found Sarah's, and together they watched the cosmic dance of gas and light outside their window. Sarah, Nova's voice was quiet. Are we a family now? Sarah squeezed the small lavender hand in hers. Yes, Nova. We're a family. Different from most, maybe, but still a family. Nova's markings brightened with joy, casting gentle patterns across the cockpit walls. As Sarah watched the lights dance, she made a silent promise to herself and her unexpected daughter. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever mysteries Nova's past held, they would face them together. The Starweaver continued its quiet drift through the nebula, carrying its precious cargo of two souls who had found each other across the vast emptiness of space, creating something rare and beautiful, a family forged among the stars, strange powers awakening. The first sign that Nova was more than just an unusual alien child came during what should have been a routine maintenance day aboard the Starweaver. Sarah was in the engine room, performing necessary repairs on the quantum drive when a startled cry from Nova made her heart freeze. Racing to the common area, Sarah found Nova floating 3 feet off the ground, her violet eyes wide with panic and her markings pulsing rapidly. Around her, various objects, books, tools, even Sarah's favorite coffee mug, orbited like tiny satellites. Nova, Sarah called out, trying to keep her voice calm despite her shock. It's okay, sweetheart. Just breathe. I don't know how to stop it. Nova's voice trembled, her fear making more objects rise from their resting places. Sarah moved carefully through the floating debris, reaching out to Nova. Focus on my voice. You're safe. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Slowly, Nova's breathing steadied. The objects gradually descended, settling gently back in place as Nova herself floated down into Sarah's waiting arms. They stood there for a long moment, Nova trembling slightly while Sarah stroked her hair. Has this happened before? Sarah asked softly. Nova shook her head. I felt strange this morning, like energy was building up inside me. Then suddenly everything just lifted. Sarah guided Nova to the medical bay, her mind racing. Over the next few hours, she ran every scan she could think of, comparing the results to Nova's baseline readings from when she'd first been revived. The changes were remarkable. Her neural activity had increased exponentially, and there were energy patterns in her cellular structure that defied explanation. "Your body seems to be going through some kind of transformation," Sarah explained, showing Nova the holographic display of her scan results. Like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. Nova studied the images with intense curiosity. "Is this why I can hear the whispers?" "Whispers?" Sarah asked, her scientific interest piqued. "Sometimes I hear thoughts that aren't mine, like echoes from far away." Nova's markings shifted into a pattern Sarah had never seen before. "Yesterday, I knew you were worried about the fuel cells before you even checked them." Sarah sat back, processing this new information. Telepathy and telekinesis, abilities that had long been theoretical but never conclusively proven in any known species. What exactly was Nova's heritage? Over the next few weeks, they worked together to understand and control Nova's emerging abilities. Sarah converted the cargo bay into a practice area where Nova could safely experiment with her powers. The girl's control grew steadily, though there were still occasional accidents, like the time she accidentally rearranged all the furniture in her room during a nightmare. "Remember," Sarah would say during their practice sessions, "these abilities are part of who you are. They're not good or bad by themselves. What matters is how you choose to use them." Nova took these lessons seriously, her natural curiosity driving her to explore the limits of her powers, while her gentle nature kept her mindful of their impact. She learned to lift and move objects with increasing precision, to shield her growing telepathic awareness so she wasn't overwhelmed by stray thoughts, and even to create small force fields. But with these developments came new concerns. Sarah knew that if word of Nova's abilities got out, there would be those who would see her as a weapon to be controlled or a subject to be studied. Their peaceful existence in the nebula felt increasingly precarious. One evening, as they shared dinner in the galley, Nova suddenly went still, her markings flashing in alarm. "Someone's coming," she whispered. Seconds later, the ship's proximity alerts blared. A vessel had entered the nebula, its trajectory suggesting it was searching for something. Or someone. Sarah sprang into action, initiating the Star Weaver's stealth protocols. "Nova, go to your safe room. Remember what we practiced." But Nova remained rooted in place, her expression distant. "They're looking for others like me. They know what I am." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Can you sense anything else?" Nova's markings pulsed with concentration. "They're scared. Not of me, but for me. They know about the station where you found me. They say I'm not the only survivor." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. There were others? More children like Nova, perhaps hidden away in other forgotten stations. The implications were staggering. The approaching ship was now close enough for visual identification. It wasn't a military vessel or a research ship, but rather an old transport, modified for long-range exploration. On its hull, barely visible through the nebulous gases, was a symbol that matched one of the markings on the station where Sarah had found Nova. "They're like me," Nova said softly, her eyes fixed on the approaching ship. "Not exactly the same, but similar. They've been searching for a long time." Sarah felt her heart constrict. She had known this day might come, when Nova's past would catch up with them, when their little family might face its greatest challenge. But she hadn't expected it so soon. "What do you want to do?" Sarah asked, knowing this decision had to be Nova's. Nova turned to her, those alien eyes filled with a wisdom far beyond her apparent years. "We should talk to them." But she reached out and took Sarah's hand, her markings glowing with warmth. "You're my family now. That doesn't change, no matter what we learn." Sarah squeezed her hand, fighting back tears. "Always, sweetheart, no matter what." As they prepared to respond to the approaching ship's hails, Sarah watched Nova standing tall beside her, no longer the frightened child from the stasis pod. Whatever revelations awaited them, whatever challenges they would face, they would face them together, a family forged in the stars, bound by something stronger than blood or species. The Starweaver's comm system crackled to life, carrying a message that would change their lives forever. Nova's markings blazed like captured starlight as she stepped forward to answer, ready to face her destiny. Hidden legacy revealed. The moment the transmission came through, Sarah knew their lives would never be the same. The voice that filled the Starweaver's bridge was melodic, similar to Nova's otherworldly tones, but deeper with age and wisdom. Greetings, protector of the last princess. We are the guardians of the Luminari, and we've been searching for her since the fall of our world. Nova gasped, her markings pulsing with recognition at the ancient language being spoken alongside the translated English. Sarah watched as her daughter's eyes filled with tears of memory. Princess, Sarah whispered, looking at Nova with new understanding. The mysterious ship, now identified as the Stellar Oath, requested permission to dock. After a thorough scan confirmed they carried no weapons, Sarah cautiously agreed. As the airlocks engaged, Nova gripped Sarah's hand tightly. I'm starting to remember, Nova said softly. Not everything, but fragments, like pieces of a dream becoming clear. The airlocks cycled, and 3 figures emerged. They were tall, their skin ranging from deep purple to pale silver, with markings similar to Nova's but more intricate, telling stories of age and experience in light. The leader, an elderly female with silvery skin and markings that shimmered like starlight, stepped forward and knelt before Nova. Princess Novala of the House of Eternal Light, she said, her voice thick with emotion. At last, we found you. Nova, or Novala, stood straighter, her own markings brightening in response. Guardian Lyra, she said, the name coming to her lips without conscious thought. I remember you. You were my teacher. The revelation of Nova's true identity brought with it a flood of information. The Luminari, they learned, had once been a peaceful and advanced civilization, guardians of ancient knowledge and keepers of powerful psionic abilities. Their homeworld, Luminara, had been a beacon of culture and scientific achievement in the galaxy. But their very gifts had made them targets. A militant faction of the Galactic Confederation, fearing the Luminari's growing influence and powers, had launched a surprise attack. The crystalline cities that Nova remembered had burned, their songs of peace turned to screams of terror. Your parents, the High Sovereigns, Lyra explained, as they gathered in the Starweaver's common room, knew the attack was coming. They had only enough time to save a handful of our people, mainly children, our future. You, as heir to the throne, were given the highest protection. The stasis pod, Sarah realized. The station where I found her. One of several emergency sanctuaries, another guardian, a male named Talon, confirmed. We spent years searching for them all, recovering our scattered children. You, Princess Novala, were the last and most important. Nova seemed to struggle with this information, her grip on Sarah's hand tightening. But why? Why was I so important? Lyra's markings shifted to a pattern of deep significance. Because you carry within you the heart of Luminara, our people's most sacred inheritance. Your genetic structure contains coded memories of our entire civilization, our history, our knowledge, our ways. As you grow, these memories will continue to surface, along with abilities far beyond those you've already discovered. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. No wonder Nova's powers had been emerging so dramatically. She wasn't just any Luminari child, she was their living legacy. The Confederation still hunts for any trace of our people, the third guardian, Marina, added grimly. If they knew of your existence. They don't, Sarah said firmly, her protective instincts flaring. And they won't. I've kept her safe this long, and I'll continue to do so. The guardians exchanged looks of surprise and approval. You have indeed protected her well, Lyra acknowledged. Better than we could have hoped for, in fact. The bond between you is remarkable. Nova finally spoke up, her voice small but determined. What happens now? Do Do I have to leave? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah felt her heart constrict at the thought of losing Nova, but she knew she had to put her daughter's needs first. If this was Nova's destiny, if her people needed her. But Lyra smiled, her markings glowing with warmth. Leave? No, young one. Your human mother has given you something precious. A normal childhood, love, stability. These are things we could never provide while in hiding. Instead, we wish to join you. Join us? Sarah asked, surprised. The time has come to begin rebuilding our culture, Talon explained. Not through war or revenge, but through understanding and growth. Princess Novala needs to learn our ways, yes, but she also needs to maintain the life she has built here. Perhaps that is the key to our people's future, finding a balance between what was and what could be. Nova's markings burst into patterns of joy. You mean, we can stay together? All of us? If your mother agrees, Lyra said, looking to Sarah with respect. Sarah looked around at these beings who had come so far to find her daughter. She saw in them not a threat to her family, but an opportunity for it to grow. Of course I agree. Nova needs to know who she is, where she comes from, and I admit, I'm curious to learn more about your people myself. The decision made, plans were quickly formed. The Stellar Oath would join the Star Waver in its journey, their combined crews working together to protect Nova while continuing her education in both human and Luminari ways. They would seek out other survivors, building a new community in the shadows until the time was right to emerge. That night, after the Guardians had returned to their ship to begin preparations, Sarah found Nova in the observation dome, watching the nebulous colors swirl around them. Her markings were thoughtful, reflecting the cosmic dance outside. Are you okay? Sarah asked, sitting beside her. It's been quite a day. Nova turned to her, those violet eyes filled with both ancient wisdom and childlike trust. I'm glad they found us, she said, but I'm more glad we don't have to be apart. You're my mother, no matter what titles or destiny I have. Sarah pulled her daughter close, their reflections merging in the dome's transparent surface, human and Luminari, a family that defied the stars themselves. Always, Nova, always. As they sat there together, Sarah realized that sometimes the greatest adventures weren't about exploring new worlds, but about discovering new ways to love, to grow, to become more than what destiny had planned. Their story was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. The first test. 3 months after the Guardians' arrival, life aboard the joint ships had fallen into a new rhythm. The Star Waver and Stellar Oath traveled together through the lesser-known regions of space, while Nova's education in both her human and Luminari heritage continued. But their peaceful existence was about to face its first serious challenge. The warning came during one of Nova's training sessions with Guardian Lyra. They were practicing advanced energy manipulation in the Stellar Oath's converted cargo bay when Nova suddenly froze, her markings flashing in alarm. Confederation ships, she whispered, her newly enhanced abilities detecting them long before the ship's sensors. 4 of them. They're searching this sector. Sarah and the Guardians sprang into action, their months of preparation for this scenario finally being put to the test. But as they initiated their practiced escape protocols, Nova grabbed Sarah's arm. Wait, she said, her violet eyes intense. There's something else. A distress signal. Children. They have children aboard one of the ships. Lyra's markings pulsed with concern. More survivors. Possibly, Talon said, checking the long-range scanners. The Confederation has been raiding suspected sanctuary stations. They could have found another pod. Sarah saw the conflict in her daughter's eyes. They could escape easily. Their ship's stealth systems were more than capable of slipping away undetected, but leaving other children to the Confederation's mercy. We have to help them, Nova declared, standing tall despite her young age. I know it's dangerous, but we can't abandon our own people. Sarah felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. This was the moment she had both dreaded and hoped for, when Nova would begin to truly embrace her role as a leader of her people. If we do this, Sarah said carefully, we'll need a plan. One that doesn't expose you to unnecessary risk. The next hour was a blur of preparation. Using Nova's telepathic abilities and the Guardian's ancient knowledge, they crafted a daring rescue strategy. The Star Weaver would create a distraction, appearing to be a damaged merchant vessel, while the Stellar Oath would use the confusion to get close to the Confederation ship holding the children. Remember, Sarah told Nova as they made final preparations, stay in the shielded chamber until we give the all clear. Your safety is paramount. Nova nodded, but her markings betrayed her determination. I can help. I can sense where the children are, guide our people to them. From the shielded chamber, Sarah insisted, promise me. I promise, Nova agreed, hugging her mother tightly. The rescue operation began smoothly. The Star Weaver's distress call drew two of the Confederation ships away, while the Stellar Oath slipped closer to their target under the cover of a modified cloaking field. Sarah watched from the Star Weaver's bridge as the plan unfolded, her heart in her throat. Then everything went sideways. The Confederation ships suddenly changed formation, their movements suggesting they detected something. Warning alerts blared across both rescue ship systems. They're scanning for Luminari energy signatures, Marina reported urgently. They must have developed new detection methods. In the shielded chamber, Nova felt the trapped children's fear spike. Without hesitation, she made a decision that would change everything. Breaking her promise to Sarah, she stepped out of the chamber's protection and reached out with her powers. The effect was immediate and stunning. Every electronic system on the Confederation ships suddenly went dark. Escape pods containing the captured children launched automatically, while navigation and weapons systems crashed. In the chaos, Nova established telepathic contact with the rescued children, guiding them safely to the Stellar Oath. But the power display had a cost. Nova collapsed, her markings flickering weakly, as the rescue ships made their escape with their precious cargo. Sarah found her daughter unconscious but smiling faintly. I had to help them, Nova whispered when she finally awoke in the medical bay hours later. I could feel their fear, their hope when they sensed me. They're like me, Mom, alone and scared, until someone brave enough came to save them. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, torn between pride and residual fear. You are your mother's daughter, Lara said softly from the doorway. Both mothers, you have Sarah's courage and your birth mother's compassion. The rescued children, 5 in total, each from different sanctuary stations, was safely aboard, being cared for by the Guardians. Like Nova, they were young royalty and nobility, preserved to ensure the Luminari culture would survive. The Confederation will be hunting us more actively now, Talon warned during a council meeting the next day. They know we're out here, protecting our future. Let them hunt, Sarah said firmly. We'll stay ahead of them. These children deserve a chance to grow up free, to learn both who they are and who they can become. Nova, still recovering but insistent on attending the meeting, spoke up. We need to find the others. There are more out there, I can feel them, and we need to help them understand both sides of their heritage, like I'm learning to do. The rescue marked a turning point. They could no longer simply hide and wait. Nova's actions had shown them a new path forward, one that balanced the need for safety with the responsibility to help others. That evening, Sarah found Nova in their favorite spot in the observation dome. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if acknowledging the young princess's growing power and purpose. I'm sorry I broke my promise, Nova said softly, but I'm not sorry for helping them. Sarah sat beside her daughter, pulling her close. I know, sweetheart. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. I'm proud of you, scared out of my mind, but proud. Nova's markings glowed with happiness and determination. We're going to find them all, aren't we? All the lost children. Yes, Sarah agreed, looking out at the stars that held both danger and hope. Together, we'll find them all and give them what you have, a chance to be both who they were born to be and who they choose to become. The Starwaver and Stellar Oath continued their journey through space, now with additional precious cargo. They were no longer simply hiding. They were building something new, a future that combined the best of both human and Luminari worlds, guided by a young princess who understood both. Their mission had evolved, becoming more dangerous but also more meaningful. And as Nova fell asleep that night, her rescued kin safe in nearby cabins, she dreamed not of the past she was remembering, but of the future she would help create, a future where no child of any species would be left alone in the darkness of space. Rising dawn. In the wake of the daring rescue, word spread through hidden channels across the galaxy. More Luminari survivors emerged from deep hiding, drawn by whispers of a young princess who bridged two worlds. The Starwaver and Stellar Oath became the heart of a growing flotilla of ships, each carrying their own precious cargo of hope. 6 months had passed, and Nova's powers had grown exponentially. Under Lyra's guidance and Sarah's loving support, she learned to balance her dual nature, the measured wisdom of her Luminari heritage with the adaptable strength of her human upbringing. Focus on the energy flows, Lyra instructed during a training session as Nova worked to maintain a complex network of force fields around their small fleet. Feel the connections between all things. Sarah watched from nearby, marveling at how her daughter had grown. Nova's markings now shifted in intricate patterns that told stories of both ancient knowledge and new discoveries. She was 13 now, though her experiences had given her wisdom beyond her years. The peaceful morning was shattered by an urgent transmission from their forward scouts. Multiple Confederation warships detected. They're deploying a new type of energy net. Standard evasion patterns aren't working. Nova's eyes snapped open, her force fields dissolving. They found us. This time, it wasn't just a patrol they could evade. The Confederation had sent a full battle fleet, clearly prepared for a prolonged engagement. Their ships filled the starscape ahead, cutting off all apparent escape routes. All ships, execute scattered retreat protocol, Sarah commanded, but Nova raised her hand. No, she said firmly. We're done running. The assembled Luminari leaders turned to their young princess in surprise. Nova stood tall, her markings blazing with purpose. Every time we run, we leave others behind. How many more children are out there, waiting to be found? How many of our people are still hiding in fear? The Confederation hunts us because they fear what they don't understand. So let's help them understand. It's too dangerous, Sarah protested, though pride shone in her eyes. We can't risk. Mom, Nova interrupted gently, taking her hand. You taught me that sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting or running, it's being willing to talk, to build bridges where others see only walls. Let me try. The Confederation fleet drew closer, their weapons charged. Nova stepped onto the Starwaver's bridge, her presence commanding despite her youth. With a gesture, she established a direct telepathic link to every ship in both fleets, Luminari and Confederation alike. I am Princess Novala of the Luminari. Her voice resonated in every mind, accompanied by images of truth that no deception could fake. But I am also Nova Chen, daughter of Sarah Chen, a human who taught me that family isn't about blood or species, it's about love and choice. Through the link, she shared her story, the loneliness of the stasis pod, the warmth of finding a new mother, the joy of discovering her heritage, and the hope of building a future that embraced both worlds. She showed them the rescued children, not as weapons or threats, but as they truly were, young souls hoping for a chance to grow and learn. You hunt us because you fear our powers, Nova continued, her mental voice gentle but firm. But look at what those powers can do when guided by love instead of fear. With that, she reached out with her abilities, but not to attack. Instead, she created a stunning display of light and energy between the fleets, a recreation of the crystalline cities of Luminara, but interwoven with images of Earth's natural beauty. It was a vision of what could be if both sides chose cooperation over conflict. The Confederation fleet hung motionless in space. In every ship, crews stood transfixed by Nova's vision and the truth in her words. After what seemed like an eternity, the Confederation flagship responded. "Princess Novala," the Admiral's voice was rough with emotion. We had no idea. We were told your people were a threat to galactic stability, but seeing through your eyes. "Then let's talk," Nova offered. "Not as enemies, but as two peoples who can learn from each other. Let my story be proof that coexistence isn't just possible, it's beautiful." The negotiations that followed were complex, but Nova's demonstration had cracked the foundation of decades of fear and mistrust. The Confederation leaders, moved by the truth they'd witnessed, agreed to open diplomatic channels. More importantly, they pledged to end the hunt for Luminari survivors. As the tension of immediate conflict faded, Sarah found Nova in their old spot in the observation dome. Her daughter looked tired but satisfied, her markings glowing with quiet contentment. "You did it," Sarah said softly, sitting beside her. "You found a third option, not fighting, not running, but building understanding." Nova leaned against her mother's shoulder. "I had a good teacher. You showed me that family can cross any boundary. Why not peace?" Their ships now flew openly through space, no longer hiding in nebulae and forgotten sectors. Word of the young princess who bridged worlds spread throughout the galaxy, drawing more survivors out of hiding. But more importantly, it drew those who wanted to learn, to understand, to be part of something new. The Luminari children they'd rescued were thriving, learning to balance that ancient heritage with the possibilities of the present. Some showed aptitude for science, others for art or diplomacy. Each was encouraged to find their own path, just as Nova had. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, watching the stars that no longer held threat, only promise. Nova smiled, her markings shifting to show both ancient patterns and new designs of her own creation. "Now we build something new. Not just for the Luminari, not just for humans, but for everyone who believes that differences can make us stronger together than apart." The Starweaver and its companion ships set course for a new destination, a planet that would become the first joint human Luminari colony, a place where children of both species could grow up together, learning from each other's strengths and understanding each other's perspectives. As they traveled, Nova thought about the long journey that had brought her here. From a forgotten stasis pod to a bridge between worlds, from a lost child to a leader who chose hope over fear. But most importantly, she thought about the love that had made it all possible, the love of a human mother who had seen past differences to find family among the stars. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility. And in the observation dome of the Starweaver, a human mother and her alien daughter watched the stars together, knowing that their story was just beginning. Legacy of Two Worlds. 5 years had passed since the historic meeting between the Confederation and the Luminari fleet. On a pristine world named Haven, crystal spires, reminiscent of ancient Luminara, rose alongside modern human architecture, creating a breathtaking blend of both civilizations. At 18, Nova had grown into a leader who embodied the best of both her heritages. The Grand Hall of the Unity Center sparkled with combined human and Luminari technology, as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for a momentous occasion. Nova stood at the center, her markings radiating subtle patterns of calm confidence, while Sarah watched proudly from the front row. "When I was a child," Nova began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall, "I had two families. One I was born to, preserved in memories and legacy, and one I was given by love and chance. Today, we celebrate that same spirit of family extending across the stars." The hall erupted in soft lights as the attending Luminari children, now teenagers, lit their markings in response to their princess's words. Among them were the 5 she had helped rescue years ago, each now coming into their own power and purpose. "Haven isn't just a colony or a sanctuary," Nova continued. "It's proof that the greatest strength comes not from power or technology, but from the willingness to learn from each other. Every child here, whether human or Luminari, grows up knowing they are part of something greater than themselves. Sarah remembered the frightened child she found in that stasis pod, now transformed into this poised young woman. Nova had kept her promise to find other survivors. Over the years, their small fleet had located dozens of hidden sanctuaries, rescuing more than 30 Luminari children in total. Each one found not just safety, but a community that celebrated their unique nature. The gathering marked the official opening of the Intergalactic Academy of Cultural Exchange, a project Nova had championed since its conception. The sprawling campus would welcome students from all species, fostering understanding and cooperation through shared learning and experience. "Mom," Nova called out, extending a hand to Sarah. "Would you join me?" Sarah stepped forward, taking her daughter's hand. Together, they activated the ceremonial crystal that would power the Academy's systems, a perfect fusion of Luminari crystal technology and human engineering. As the building hummed to life, Nova shared a telepathic image with all present, a vision of her two mothers. Her birth mother, the Luminari queen who had sacrificed everything to preserve her people's future, and Sarah, the human explorer who had given that future the love it needed to flourish. "My mother once told me that family isn't about blood or species," Nova said, squeezing Sarah's hand. "It's about love and choice. Today, we choose to be one family, united across the stars." The ceremony continued with demonstrations from the first class of students. Human children showed off their understanding of Luminari culture and basic energy manipulation, taught by Luminari mentors. Young Luminari displayed their grasp of human art, music, and sciences, their natural abilities enhanced by human innovative thinking. Later, in a quiet moment during the celebrations, Nova and Sarah found themselves in the Academy's observation dome, a deliberate recreation of their favorite spot on the Star Waver. "Do you ever miss it?" Nova asked. "The exploring, just the two of us." Sarah smiled, watching the sunset paint Haven's crystal spires in rainbow hues. "Sometimes, but seeing what you've helped create here, it's beyond anything I could have imagined when I found you." Nova's markings shifted in a pattern of deep affection. "I've been thinking about the next step," she said. "The Academy is established, the colony is thriving. I want to go back out there. There are still stories to be found, bridges to be built." "The Star Weaver's always ready," Sarah replied, understanding in her eyes. "But this time, we won't be hiding." The next morning, as leaders from across the galaxy continued their discussions of cooperation and exchange, Nova made an announcement that surprised no one who truly knew her. "While Haven will always be our home," she declared, "our work isn't finished. The Star Weaver will lead a new mission, not of rescue or survival, but of discovery and connection. We'll seek out other species who might be hiding in fear, other children who need to know they're not alone." The response was overwhelming. Both humans and Luminari volunteered for the mission, eager to be part of this new chapter. The Star Weaver would lead a fleet of exploration vessels, each crewed by members of both species working in harmony. On the day of departure, Sarah stood on the Star Weaver's bridge, now upgraded with a stunning blend of both technologies. Nova sat in the captain's chair, no longer a scared child or even just a princess, but a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to understanding. "Course laid in, Captain," Sarah said with a smile. "Where to?" Nova's markings danced with excitement and purpose. "Everywhere, Mom. There are so many stories out there waiting to be found, so many connections waiting to be made." As the Starweaver lifted off from Haven, Nova reached out with her abilities, sharing her joy and determination with the entire crew. They felt her pride in her dual heritage, her gratitude for both the family she'd been born to and the one she'd found, and her unwavering belief in the power of understanding to transform fear into hope. The ship rose through the atmosphere, its hull gleaming with the combined lights of human technology and Luminari crystal power. Below, Haven shone like a beacon of possibility, proof that the universe's greatest gifts often came in the form of unexpected families and bridges built across the stars. "Ready for another adventure?" Nova asked, looking at her mother with those same violet eyes that had once gazed up in fear from a stasis pod. Sarah took her position beside her daughter, where she had always belonged. With you, always. The Starweaver leaped into hyperspace, carrying with it the legacy of 2 worlds and the promise of many more to come. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, other lost children waited to learn what Nova had discovered, that family, love, and understanding could flourish in the most unexpected places, reaching across the stars to touch hearts of all species.